didn't get it yet.
Bruchim Haboyim.
I know.
Welcome.
I know, all right.
Welcome everyone. So just to express hakaras hatov to our learning sponsors, and we have some exciting information for you today. So we'll get started first by our learning sponsors. A year of learning for Rabbi Dr. Chaim Shapiro, Harav Chaim ben Shlomo Aharon. A year by the Learning Friends in memory of Saul Chapman, Yisrael Kalman ben Moshe. Friends of Judy Garber in her memory, Yehudis Bas Shalom. Friends of Alvin Greenfield in his memory, Avram ben Yaakov. Friends of Sonny Meiselman in his memory, Nisan Yitzchak ben Shlomo Zalman. A month of learning by Andrea and David Donley in memory of her mother, Adel Tzina bat Shimshon. A month by Jill and Perry Meltzer in memory of her father, Yaakov ben Yosef. A month by Meir and Chaya Sarah Briban and Michael Briban in memory of Meir and Michael's father, Zelig ben Moshe. Their mother, Bela bat Elimelech. Their uncle, Mendel ben Elimelech. And Chaya Sarah's father, Menashe ben Yitzchak Isaac. A month of learning by Chaya and Sal Minzer in memory of her mother, Bluma bat Lipo. May their neshamos have an aliyah.
Amen.
Okay, so those of you who are viewing this this class online, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or whatever, I'm giving out some extra text information today, and if you need to, just contact me and I'll get it to you too. So I said we're going to have some exciting information today. First of all, if you saw there are three handouts today. One of them is the main one, which is the main text of the Gemara, which is going to be our topic. The second one, in all in Hebrew, is a Mishnah, which actually appears in our Gemara on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph on the page 11a in the Gemara, which we're not going to reach today. We probably won't reach it this season, but it's referenced here, so I wanted to give it to you in entirety. And the third one is a little chart showing the Rashi script. And if you remember that the actual title of this course is Talmud Without Fear. And so my goal in organizing this class is to provide a Gemara Shir, first of all, because we said right at the beginning that according to Rav Steinsaltz, what sustains a community is the fact that Gemara, Talmud, is being learned in that community. So here we are, all of us together, contributing to the existence really of our community by studying the Talmud. So that's number one. And then number two is I get a lot out of it myself. It's a lot of fun for me to be preparing and then hopefully giving it over. And third, in terms of the students, in terms of the people who are here, so I said I wanted to make it available and not just available, but understandable and for everybody. So people who have a really good background, I hope I don't bore you. I don't think so. And people who are sort of new to it. So we want to help to kind of bring you along and make you eventually into intermediate or advanced learners as well. And what we've been doing up until now is basically concentrating on the main text of the Gemara and not spending a lot of time on the commentaries which appear on the sides of the page. And the commentaries, most of them are written in a slightly different script. It's the writing, the print is slightly different, and what they use is what's called Rashi script, which is not really invented by Rashi, but he's the first one that was printed in this style, and it was done that way so that people would recognize what is actually the Gemara, what is the commentary. So I printed out, I found something online that showed the comparison between the letters that Rashi script is in and the typical Hebrew block letters. So you've got a homework assignment to just look it over, because next week I want to start doing some of the Rashis as well, not just concentrating on the main body of the text, but getting into some of the commentaries, because if you remember, one of the things that I've said many times is that the key to learning and understanding is to go to the primary source as much as possible. So if we're able to read what Rashi has to say in Rashi's own words, reading it from the script, I think that's better than you hearing me telling you my impression of it, right? Because it's going to always be somehow or other, nobody manages to translate exactly the way someone else might. And so that's sort of a goal, that everybody will have the ability, hopefully, to kind of do this on your own. And of course, there are many different translations available. The handout that I've given you is actually taken from something that was done back in the 40s, Sansino, and today we have Art Scroll and Steinsaltz, a lot of different ways. But again, if we can manage to somehow read it on our own and understand it on our own, that's going to give us a real key, an ability to learn on our own, and maybe to work with our grandchildren a little bit, and to be able to be a resource for them as well. And the other thing that we're going to get to, I hope today, is how the Gemara is going to give us information about how the sale of chametz works. And we're talking today, we're learning real estate law, but you're going to see towards the end of, I hope we're going to get to it. Whether I have to skip a little bit, we'll get to it, and we'll understand how actually when we go to the rabbi and we sign the form and so on, what actually is happening, because this is a legal transaction. It's a real sale, and how does it actually work? And so just to give you a little bit of something to think about, is that we're going to be sitting with Rabbi Yasker a little while, because he has hours today from 11:30 to 12:30, and Mindel and I are going to take care of it. But our chametz is all over the place. I mean, we have chametz in our apartment where we live here, which most of the year was living here in Florida now. We have chametz here. We also have an apartment in Elizabeth, New Jersey, so we can still be near our kids, so there's chametz there. We have an office, which is Edison, New Jersey, and there's certainly chametz there. And then we haven't managed to sell our sailboat yet, and there's chametz on there. So by meeting with Rabbi Yasker right here in his office in Torah Or, we're going to accomplish the sale of chametz in all those 4 places. And the Gemara is going to tell you how to do it. Okay? So if you take the main body, the main one, and we've marked with a flag where we're starting in the Hebrew and where we're starting in the English. And the topic that we've been discussing is the Gemara is trying to determine, trying to prove really, whether what's called hezek re'iyah means damage that's caused by looking or by observing. So last week Karen brought out that if her kids are playing, or her grandkids are playing in the backyard, she doesn't want the creepy neighbor looking over the fence and seeing what they're doing, or looking into the yard and seeing what they're doing. So in her case, as a mother, as a grandmother, it certainly feels like it's a damage to her. But can we actually prove that by that neighbor looking at her kids, it's causing her some sort of injury? So, and the Gemara is trying to prove it. And last time they brought up 6 different ways and knocked all 6 down. So we're going to continue, and we're going to try to find, does that actually constitute a real damage that we can, I don't know if we can quantify it in monetary terms, but still in all we can say that it is a real damage. So if we start from where we've marked with the flag, and it says I hezek riyah shmei hezek, right? So if this idea of damage caused by seeing really is damage, right? So it says my area ratzu. So if you remember from the Mishnah, it's talking about, and I'll just quickly read it to you, where you have partners in a courtyard, and they have decided to divide the property. So the simple case that we started with, and if you remember Mindel's nice picture that she drew, it showed a courtyard or like a common yard with 2 houses in it, and she drew a dotted line down the middle so that they could divide each one half. And it gets more complicated, because you can have situations where a lot of people share a courtyard, right? I mean, if you take where we live, there are 380 apartments in Wolverton, Karen, something like that. So we're all sharing the common space in between, but dividing that is kind of impractical. But here's the case where you have 2 partners, and they want to divide the common property, and each one wants to be able to do what he wants in his area without interference from the other. And so the Mishnah says that if these people want to divide it, because it starts out that they want to. So the Gemara is saying, getting back to our Gemara, if the Gemara says that if this hezek re'iyah, if this looking or watching or observing your neighbor is really causing a damage. So why does it have to say they agreed or they wanted to, right? If I'm causing you damage by looking at your kids playing in the sandbox back there, then why do I have to have your permission to build this division, this wall, right? So the Gemara says that my area ratzu. Why does it have to say they want to? Afilu lo ratzu namu. I mean, even if they didn't want to. So even if one of the partners is not interested in dividing it, but if his actions or just by the fact that he's there sitting in his lawn chair and looking at what's going on in my backyard, that's causing me damage. So therefore, I should have a right to divide it. Ravasi Amar Ravasi Amar Rav Yochanan. So Ravasi says in the name of Rav Yochanan, Mishnah Seinu b'she'ein ba din chalukah. So what is our Mishnah talking about? It's talking about a case where a division is not required, and what that means is that if Marty and Jean own houses in a common courtyard, and that courtyard is very large, and what very large is, we're going to get to right away. But if it's a large piece of property, and Marty says, you know what, Jean, we should divide the property, and Jean says, it doesn't matter to me, I really don't want to, I'm not here very often, whatever it is, he doesn't want to do it. But if it's a large enough piece of property, Marty can compel the division, because there will still be plenty of room for Eugene to do whatever he wants to do in his half, and Marty has a right to ask for a division. So what Ravasi is saying is that our Mishnah is talking about a case where the property is too small, and what that means is that each partner has to be left with enough property that it's still called a yard, or still considered a usable piece of property. And the Gemara defines that is that a space has to be 4 amos by 4 amos. An amma is translated, or the measurement that we have is between 18 and 24 inches. So if we have a piece of property that is, let's say, take the larger size, 24 inches, so something is 8 feet by 8 feet, which means each partner has an 8 foot by 8 foot piece. Now one partner could compel the other partner, because he's still left with a piece of property that he could use. So Ravasi says, in the name of Yochanan, that our Mishnah is talking about a case where it's not required, where the halves would not equal this 8 feet by 8 feet. In that case, they have to agree, because if they agree, they can always agree. In other words, whatever the size of the yard, if both partners agree to divide it, they can divide it. They can always do that. But I can't force you to divide if what you're going to wind up with is not really going to be usable for you in a normal sense. So the Gemara says, "My kamashmalan." So what is this coming to teach us? That it can't be that it has to be a situation where they were not required to divide it. The chiles din chaluka. Because we know that even if it's not a requirement to divide it, but if they want to, they certainly could do it. Tanina, because we learned this in another Mishnah, which says, Emasai, when must this property remain whole? In other words, not to be divided. It's bismanch ein shnehem rotzim. It's in a time when they both don't agree. And that Mishnah is, again, it's on your second handout, the one that's all in Hebrew, and this is a Mishnah which we'll get to eventually. And in the Gemara, it comes on page Yud Aleph Amud Aleph 11a. It's the 6th Mishnah in the first chapter of Bava Basra, which we're learning, and the Mishnah says, "Ein cholken es hachatzer." The yards, the courtyards, do not get divided. Arba amos lazeh, arba amos lazeh. Just so we said, that the division is not required until each of them has at least 4 by 4 amos, right? Below es hasoda, and as relates to a field. So suppose what we have is not a courtyard where we're just using it for we're grilling back there, we're sitting outside, whatever we're doing out there, but we have actually a grain field, which is shared in common. And now I decide that I don't want to share my grain field with you. I have my method of farming, you have your method of farming. I want to separate. I want to have mine by myself and yours by yourself. So when it comes to a field, tishas kabin lezeh, v'tishas kabin lezeh. It's the amount of land that you are required to divide if either of the partners wants to, is enough grain, enough land that will grow 9 kabin. A kab is a measure of volume, and so it yields that much grain, which is, the Gemara says that a field which is 3,750 square amos will yield that much grain. So so just to make it easy, let's say it's 4,000 amos. So if you have a field that's 2,000 by 2,000, which is roughly 4,000 by 4,000 square feet, so it's 16,000 square feet. What's an acre? An acre is 52,000 square feet. So it's like how much is an acre?
640 square feet.
An acre is in the thousands of square feet. An acre is 640 square feet.
A builder's acre, I know a quarter of an acre is 10,000.
A builder's acre is 10,000 square feet. Okay, yeah, I think that when years ago when I was building, we used to build a quarter acre lot. There was 100 by 100. Right. That's 10,000 square feet. So an acre is somewhere around 40,000, whatever it is. But basically, so the Gemara is saying about 16,000, which is about a third of an acre, I think. Mm-hmm. If not, so if my math is wrong, my Gemara is right. So roughly each one gets about a third of an acre or something like that. In other words, a piece of ground that he can use to grow a crop in there. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad shehebo tishas chatzoi kabin lezeh, v'tisha chatzoi kabin lezeh. Rabbi Yehuda says that even an area which will do 9/2 kabins, in other words, half the area, and the reason is because he lived in an area where the ground was exceedingly fertile. So in his neighborhood, that smaller quantity, so let's say 8,000 square feet, not 16,000 square feet, would yield about the same quantity, this 9 kabin of grain. Veloa sagina, and as regards a garden, like a vegetable garden, or an orchard growing fruit trees, so since that produce is more valuable, right? Tomatoes are worth more than grain by the bushel, right? So the same way, so it has to be that each one has enough to grow half a kav, like 1/18 of the same quantity for each of them. Rabbi Akiva says base rova, so not a half, even a quarter. Veloas ha-traklin, veloas ha-morin. These are other items that could be owned in common, and one partner wants to divide, the other partner doesn't want to. So a traklin is a large reception hall. Veloas ha-morin, a morin is a gazebo that people might own in common, and somebody wants to divide, the other one doesn't want to. Veloas ha-shovach, and not as a dovecote, if we're raising doves together, and one wants to divide it. Veloas ha-talis, and not a garment that one person, maybe it's a large scarf or some kind of a kerchief or something. Veloas ha-merchatz, veloas ha-beis abad, and not a bathhouse that two people might own as partners. Or a beis abad is an olive press that people might own together. Until the division must be so that each one of them has. So if we have an olive press, for example, well, maybe there are 2 tanks or something in there, and there's enough left when you divide it in half. Each one could say he owns an olive press, and the same thing with the garden and whatever other these items are, that you can compel the division if each one winds up with what he still can call. In other words, the function will still continue the way that he had it before. Zehaklal, kol she'echalek u'shmo olav cholkin. Anything that you can divide and it still retains its name, its title, its use, you can force a division. Vimlav, and if not, ein cholkin. If not, if you can't, in other words, again, you can always do it voluntarily, but you cannot force your partner to divide the property if what he winds up with in the end is not going to be usable to him for the purpose that it was intended, right? So, Amosai, what does it say? Bisman she'ein shnehem rotzin. And this is a case when they don't want to. Avol bisman she'shnehem rotzin, when they both want to, if they're both agreeable to it, afilu b'pachos mikan yachloku. Even if it's a smaller amount, they can still divide. And now this next line is the whole reason why I'm reading this Mishnah to you. It says v'kisvei HaKodesh, and holy books, scrolls basically. Afal pi sheshneim rotzin lo yachloku. So if you have a navi, let's say, or a chumash or whatever, and it's done on a scroll, right? They didn't print books the way we do, so it was done on a scroll, and somebody wants to divide half of Sefer Shmuel, right? We were learning Sefer Shmuel. Somebody wants to divide it in half, whether they want to or they don't want to. Even if both parties want to, you cannot do that. You're not allowed to do that. And so just remember that, because we're gonna get to that right away.
Excuse me, so is that in reference to a collection of scrolls?
So a collection of scrolls can be divided, that's right. But if you have an individual scroll, so let's say what you have is, like I said, the Sefer Shmuel, right? Or Megillas Esther, right? Megillas Esther is written on one piece of parchment. So if the two partners decide that we're going to cut it in half because we're going to practice, we're going to rehearse. I'm going to practice the second half, you're going to practice the first half, and then we're going to come to Torah or because they're short people to read, so the two of us will do it together. That's okay, but you can't cut it in half. Not allowed to do that. So even if both partners agree to cut it in half, not allowed to do it. Okay? So continue. So now we said that we've learned from this other Mishnah, right? And we said Emasai b'zman she'ein shneim rotzin. So this forced division can be in a case where one does not necessarily want to. But when they want to, so even if it's less than this required amount, that they can divide it. So the Gemara says now what the Gemara is going to ask is a very basic question, and that is that the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Torah, they're not storybooks. There's a reason why everything is written down. There's no such thing as putting in superfluous information just to entertain us or something like that. There's a reason why it's there. So the Gemara says, Imi Hasam, if you can learn from that Mishnah, which we just read, that one partner can compel the other partner to divide, even if he doesn't want to, right? Hava Amina Afila Pachas Mikan. I would have thought even a smaller amount could be required, because b'mesifa ba'alma, you could use just divide it by means of some kind of a marker on the ground, right? And so therefore, Kamash Malon, Hakal Kosos. Here it's coming to teach us that we're talking about building a wall, not just making some kind of a mark on the ground. So the Gemara says, okay, we learned that from our Mishnah right here. Our Mishnah says, right, that the division is going to be by means of a wall, right? Because it says in the Mishnah, let's just get to it again. The Mishnah says, Hashufin shiratzu lasos mechitza b'chatzer bon and esakoso. They build a wall. So partners who want to divide their property, they build a wall. So now that we know that it's done by building a wall, and we know that it's done whether both partners agree or not, so why then do we have to have the other Mishnah that we just read? This Mishnah from page Yud Aleph, right? That was the second handout. Why do we need that? Because here we have the information right here. And what is it coming to add? What is it bringing to us that we didn't have before? So they said, teach this one, not that one. So the Gemara says, Seifa Tzricha. The end of the Mishnah, where it says, we're talking about, what is the end of it? The Kisvei Kodesh, Afal Pisha Shneim Rotzin, Lo Yachloku. When it comes to holy books, you can't force it. So it's letting you know that every other case of property which should not be, which can't be divided, and each person winds up with the same purpose as he had before, can be done if they agree to it, and that's all true. That's the same as what says in our Mishnah. But the one bit of information that's being added is that when it comes to the holy books, you can't do it. So just by virtue of the fact that that's being added, the Mishnah used that other information kind of to introduce that thought. So therefore, that's why they bothered to say the Mishnah here, and they repeated basically some of the same information over there to show you the difference between items which can be divided or a division can be compelled, and items which cannot be compelled. Lishna Acharina, so this is in parentheses, but it's a pretty long parenthesis. We're going to read the whole thing. So it could be a different way of understanding the same conversation or same statement. V'chi ratzu my hava lahader be. So suppose if they wanted to divide it, suppose they changed their mind. Once they've agreed to divide it, and now one partner says, you know what, JK, right? Like my kids say, just kidding. I didn't really mean to divide it. Let's not do it. In that case, so if Amar Ravasi, Amar Rav Yochanan, so Ravasi said in the name of Yochanan, Bishakanu miyado. So once he makes a kinyan, which means that he agrees to a division. In that case, then instead of teaching the rule, because what we're trying to prove, we're trying to prove that hezek re'iyah is hezek, right? That somebody looking into your property is causing you damage. So we're trying to prove it by means of this case. We're saying, why can I compel you to divide the property? I can compel you to divide the property because you're annoying me, right? But the Gemara, each time that they bring up a suggestion, they find a way to knock it down, really. That's what's happening. So they're saying that the fact that I can compel you to divide is not because looking into my property is causing me damage, it's because we agreed already. And once we've agreed, you can't take it back. And so what do they say? Well, the partners have agreed. So lishminam b'yeshba din chaluka. So let's say that once they've agreed, it's subject to a division, they can divide. V'afagav delo ratzu. And then even if they don't want to, they've agreed to do it, and now they changed their mind, they still can be forced to do it, to make this division. Iyashmina b'yeshba din chaluka. So if you're saying that looking into the property is what causes it, afagav delo ratzu, even though they don't want to divide it, havamin, I would have thought she'ein ba din chaluka. So therefore, I wouldn't think that they're required to divide. Afilu ratzu nami lo. So even though if they wanted to divide it, they could say they divided by means of some kind of marker on the ground, not necessarily by means of a wall. So kamash malon. So it's coming to teach us that even once an agreement has been made, they have to divide it, and they can't go back on it. And we're going to find out in a minute that it's not just an agreement, but something actually took place, something actually happened, and that's going to relate to the sale of chametz. Umi matzis amrit hachi. If you're going to say that that this ruling that becomes relates to a piece of property that when it's divided does not have the amount of space which is usable, v'hakatani seifa. So in the latter case of the Mishnah, emasai, what did we say? Bisman she'ein shnehem rotzin. So when can they compel this wall that they've agreed to? Bisman she'shnehem rotzin, and when they both want to divide a smaller piece of property, then they are permitted to divide it. So my lava kosel. So it must be that what they're talking about is building a wall, not necessarily just dividing it. So not just dividing by means of a marker, but they're doing it by the means of a wall. And therefore, if there's a wall, that's preventing this looking in from the other property. So the Gemara says no. He says lo. They say, I'm a sipah alma. I would think that they could just bind it they could do this division by just a marker on the ground, not necessarily requiring a wall. Listening high, below listening high. So in this Mishnah, we learned that they have to build a wall if they want to. But the other Mishnah doesn't say anything about a wall. So Seifa is Trichale, and the second Mishnah was taught because of so in other words, that other Mishnah is not really, we're not gaining anything, not gaining information from that second Mishnah regarding this business of dividing a property using a wall, right? Because we already said so in our Mishnah. So he says, so why do we need it? Because Seifa is Trichale, we need it because of the second clause of the ending of the Mishnah where it says, B'kisvei Kodesh, Afal Pisha, Shneim Rotzin Lo Yachloku. So in terms of holy books, whether they want to or they don't want to, they're not permitted to divide it. Okay, so what have we really accomplished by having these two Mishnayos, right? The Mayukimta, the Masnisan. So what is this Mishnah really talking about? What are we gaining here? Bish'ein ba'din chalukah, when it's a case that they would not be required to divide because they're not left with enough property to use for its purpose. Bish'ein ba'din chalukah, if we're talking about a case where the property that remains is not large enough for each partner to have usable property for its purpose, ki rotzu mai havo nehedrubu. So if you're going to say the reason that we're learning this in the Mishnah is because they could change their mind later on, so why can't they change their mind? What are we trying to prove? Maybe they could just change their mind, and that would kind of get back to the original statement that they could just put a divider on the ground and not to have a wall. Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan. So Rav Asi says in the name of Rav Yochanan, Shakanu miyodan. Oh, what does it mean? That they actually did an act of kinyan. A kinyan means a way of acquiring something. So there are different ways that different types of property are acquired. If you're buying a movable item, a cow or a horse or something like that, so then you draw it to you. That's called mashicha. You pull it to you. If you're buying something that's movable, it's not too heavy, you can lift it up. That's another way of acquiring it. If you're acquiring real estate, well, you can't pull real estate to you. You can't lift up real estate. So there are different ways of doing it. And the typical ways are kesef shtar and chazaka. Kesef is money, right? I give Fred a check for $100,000 for his apartment, and he won't take it, but whatever it is. But if we agree to it, that by my giving him the money, that makes an active acquisition. He's accepting it. Or I can write we can write out a deed that Herschel's buying my apartment, and $100,000 not going to get it. But let's say we write such a document, both sign it by virtue of that document changing hands, or we can do an act of chazaka. Chazaka means I've done something which indicates that I'm the owner. So I change the lock.
But if both parties
For example.
agree, why can't the kinyan be undone?
Well, that's what the Gemara is just asking now. The Gemara is saying now,
No, Gemara used the kinyan as an answer for the question.
because then it can't be undone. We're talking about a case where both partners do not agree. They both agree at first.
Right.
They both agree at first. The transfer is made, whatever way it's done, whether it's by kesef or by money or by shtar, by deed or chazaka. I go and Marilyn gives me the key, and I take it to the locksmith. I change the lock. So now I've done that act of chazaka, right? So once that's been done, Gene can't say to Marilyn, "Hey, where am I? I don't want to go and spend all my time up north. I want to be down here. How do you go and sell the apartment?" It's too late.
Where's my key?
Where's my key? Right. It's been done. Once that act has been done, there's no going back. So what the Mishnah is saying, that it's a case where something has been done to make an act of acquisition. So until that happens, right, Marty? Until that happens, either party could say, "Hey, I don't want to do that." But once something has happened, it's too late. And so what difference does it make that they've acquired it? It could be that it says v'chi kani miyadan my hava. So once they've acquired it, what does that really mean? What's accomplished to? Kinyan devarim ba'amu. It could just be words that they agree to the deal, but nothing actually happened. And then so the Gemara says it's talking about different ways of acquiring it. So one way is bishakanu miyadan baruchos. So if you picture that original two houses with a courtyard, and I buy your half, you buy my half, I walk into your half and I walk around, and I dig up something that's planted there, I plant something there, you do the same in mine. So now we've done an act of chazaka, so that indicates that this deal is the final deal. And Ravashi says, Kagon Chahalach Zeb Esoch Zeb Hichzik. One walked into the other one's property and he made some kind of an action in there, and then Zeb Esoch Shalov Hichzik, and the other one also walked into the other one's property and he made an act of chazaka. And so by doing that, they have done something to purchase the property. And what the Gemara is not saying here, but the other type of a kinyan is called kinyan chalipin. And that's what we're all gonna do now in terms of selling the chametz. Kinyan chalipin means that I take possession of something that you hand me now, here, and by virtue of that, we're making an exchange for something that I own somewhere else. Okay, so how does it work? So this is the first time I'm doing it. Rabbi asked us, so I hope it's I've got it right. But the way that we did it previously is we had a document which was written out. We signed that we were authorizing this sale to be done. But just by signing it, that didn't accomplish the act. What happened was, so the rabbi handed me his pen. I took his pen from him, which means now I acquired the pen. And by virtue of the fact that I acquired his pen, he acquired from me by exchange. It doesn't matter the values, doesn't matter the location, all my chametz, wherever it is. And now he can act. I gave the pen back, right. But right, because otherwise he'll be busy with a whole box of pens all day long. But
Technically, you don't have to.
technically, right, I've taken possession of it. Technically, I've taken possession. So now when I acquire that pen, we understand that what's happening now is he's taking possession of all my chametz, and now he can go ahead and sell it. He can do whatever he wants with it, because he owns it now, right? By virtue of the fact that we've made exchange. So in our case, our chametz is in at least 4 different places, but by the fact that he's going to give me his pen, I'm going to take the pen, and we're going to say that this makes this kinyan, and so by virtue of the fact that we've done that, we have taken care of the sale of chametz, and we've exchanged the ownership of our property, the pen, for all of the chametz. Okay, and next week we're going to get into the different types of building materials. We're talking about how the walls are to be made, and again, remember you have the homework, right? Just to look it over, and if you're familiar with the Rashi script, it's going to be simple, and if you're not familiar, it's not that difficult anyway. And we're going to get a little bit more depth, but not in a way that's going to, remember, it's Talmud without fear. Nobody should be afraid. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. So thank you. Yes, you had somebody a question?
No, I want you to go in, before your next year, go into the library, because we purchased 2 sets of shots from Korean.
Okay.
Now, the Korean, one side of it has, if you open it up from the non-secular side,
Right.
it has the Tzuras Hadaf, the Kudot for both the Gemara and for Rashi.
Right.
Kudot for Rashi. And if you go to the secular side of it, which means if you open it up, you'll be opening up in the English book, it has each little piece of the Gemara separated out for discussion.
Right.
So see if that will help you or us.
Okay, so yeah, there are a lot of, so that, I know Koran is a very good reference. I use that one with one of my grandsons. We're learning Gemara together on the phone.
Yeah? Oh,
Yeah.
so you're familiar with
So, and he's got some that are done in, which I normally use every day, where he's got it in with a modern Hebrew commentary of his own. So that's very good. And we're gonna try to go, if we can, a little bit into the original, just the way that it is printed this way since, I guess, the 16th century is when they began printing Gemaras, and we're gonna see if we can kind of noodle it out together. Thank you.